Welcome to Be Bold Branding, where we discuss the power of differentiating yourself through your own unique story and standout personal brand. Today, we're talking with someone who's going to share with you the power to speak naked. And if that doesn't intrigue you to stick around, I'm not sure what will. I'm Tanya Eberhard, founder of BrandFace, where we help business stars differentiate themselves, and we do that through personal branding.
And I'm Michael Carr. I'm the COO of BrandFace. I was actually a client before I became a partner. We're the only comprehensive personal brand building system across the globe. And we do Be Bold podcast to help people like yourselves take the fear out of putting yourselves out there. And we've got a fantastic guest today that's going to help you with that.
All right, boy, is he going to help you put yourself out there. We don't know if you'll put yourself out there as much as he has, but hang tight. Tyler Foley is an accomplished film and stage performer and has been acting in film and TV since he was 6 years old after his father passed away suddenly in a motor vehicle accident. He's appeared in productions including Freddy Vs Jason, Door to Door, Carrie, and the musical Ragtime. Tyler's passionate about helping others confidently take the stage and impact an audience with their stories. He's currently the managing director of Total Buy-In. I love that.
I love that too.
I like this even more. And the author of the #1 best-selling book, The Power to Speak Naked.
Love it.
Welcome, Tyler.
Oh, Tanya, Michael, it is my joy and my pleasure to join you from atop the 49th parallel down to you guys.
Thank you for coming.
We're so happy to have you.
Yep. Hey, listen, we're going to jump right into this because it's such an awesome thing, right? All right. So start off, tell us a little bit about you, how you got started on stage, maybe what was your inspiration?
Well, so stage actually came to me because I was born a performer. You know, before I even found the stage at 6 years old, which is quite an early time to find stage, by the way. I mean, let's be honest. I was very blessed to find the stage and be graced with it early on in my life. But I was that kid, 2 years old, you know, running around, wanting to entertain the guests when they came. Putting on little plays for everyone. I remember getting a magic kit when I was like 4 or 5 years old and wanting to show everybody all the magic tricks that I could do. And that kind of stayed with me for a very long while. And then when my father passed away at 6, I'm 6 years old at that point, right? The emotional intelligence is not really fully developed at that point. And the concept of death is definitely not something that's easy to grasp for a 6-year-old. So I didn't really grieve openly my father's passing for quite some time after that. And as a result, my mom was looking for an emotional outlet for me, and stage was it. You know, I was always a performer, but the stage gave me an outlet for honing and guiding that emotion. And that began a lifelong obsession with performance. In all areas of my vocational choices, performance has always been a part of it. I mean, we didn't get a chance to get into my resume, but I've been a business owner of multiple businesses. I've gone to university for various disciplines, from engineering to performance, and went to a fine arts high school. And I've worked in all kinds of industries, from oil and gas to aviation. I'm an author now, public speaker, trainer, and coach. I have an engineering background, have a safety consulting firm. Like, you name the pie, my finger has been in it at some point in my life. But what the thing that they all have in common is, at some point, I'm using this skill of performance and public speaking to further myself within that industry, and in fact stand out and usually excel within it because nobody else is willing to do it. And that's been the great part and gift of getting to be on stage at such an early age.
That is great.
It is. And we were talking before we started the show, but you and I share just a teeny little bit of a background. I'm a former theater person as well, a thespian, but I did that in high school and my early years in college. And then I went to Florida State to go to the big theater college, and decided 6 months after that I wasn't good enough. And frankly, I just wanted to party. So there, as Michael says, the truth comes out. But I do understand those principles, because when people would say to me later that I ended up, in the radio world for a long time and in the media world, they would say to me, well, what does theater have to do with that? And I'd say everything, everything, because not only does it teach you how to stand up and stand in front of people and speak your mind and do so with authority, but it also teaches you leadership skills. And I can see that within you, those leadership skills. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, great leaders have an ability to communicate an idea. And one of the most powerful things that I learned in theater is how to effectively communicate. And one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is that emotional intelligence component. How do I feel about a topic? How do I want somebody else to feel about the topic? And how do I make them feel that way about a topic? It's really hard to sell an idea if you can't touch people's hearts, right? It's that old adage that stats tell, but stories sell. And the reason that stories sell so effectively is it allows you to not just reach somebody's mind, but connect their mind to their heart and get them to resonate with the messaging. If we don't feel something, we're not attached to it. And
love that.
Theater makes us do that. That's the whole point of it. You go to be entertained, but the way that you are entertained is a good script or a good play will take you on a journey, and that doesn't just tell a story, but makes you feel something for that, whether that's joy, sorrow, or combinations of the above. And true leaders take any audience on that journey with them. If they're trying to inspire their staff or their employees, if they're trying to convince stakeholders or shareholders, or if they're trying to convince a board to do something, all of these things require some form of story crafting. And the really good ones do it well, where they get that emotional piece in. And it's one of the things that theater taught me early on, and that I naturally implemented before realizing why it was such an effective leadership skill.
We've said sometimes, the old adage is fake it till you make it, and you've heard also people say fake it till you become it. That's what theater is, right? I mean, you're not, I hesitate to use the word fake, because you feel it, you're in it, right? But that's not you, obviously, you're not that character, you're you playing that character, but feeling that. And that really is a lot about how to convince somebody about your, to pull in the right people to your story, the people that are really interested in hearing your story in a manner in which you want to do business with them. So it's taking that story from the personal world into the business world, because it matters there too.
It does.
Well,
and I like what you said. I mean, even if you're a board, like if you're a president of a board, or or executive president of a board, or even if you have your shareholders, or even down to smaller companies that have just a few employees, and that you need their buy-in. And if you don't believe it, if you don't feel it, and you can't portray that to them, they don't believe it or feel it, and they don't have anything to follow, and they're confused about it. So it's an excellent point that
even if you're a single employer entity and you're bootstrapping things together and it's just you, and Lord knows I've been there, that story component and being able to effectively communicate is how you grow your empire, whether that's gaining more clients. Clients are only going to trust you if they can see a bit inside of what your vision is, or how you can truly actually help them. And if you're emotionally shut off, they're not going to resonate with you. They need something to glom onto in order for them to trust you and want to do business with you. And that goes for growing that empire. Once you get enough clientele that you need to start bringing on employees, they're only going to trust you if they can buy into your vision. So you're constantly selling some form of your story or your vision. And the really good leaders have a powerful way of communicating that out to the rest of the world, so that everybody gets on board and wants to be a part of that.
Agreed 100%. And BrandFace is built upon that. It is about sharing that personal in the branding, right? It's personal branding. And because I learned it from her, And then we get the opportunity to teach it with other people and then share these stories with people like yourself that understand that that personal is how people are going to be attracted to you. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's all, like, even if you're a one-man shop, you still got to have those clients. You still got to have those customers coming to you. How are they going to get to you? Sharing your story, sharing your personality, sharing who you are. It's how everybody, and we live in that age now. Like they're going to look you up, folks. So you got to put that out.
And it's the story that differentiates you. Like when somebody says, why should I pick you over somebody else? It's the story that is going to be that deciding factor. And a lot of times it's also the thing that's most helpful because it's the thing that excludes potential clients from you. And I think a lot of people are afraid that by telling their story that they're going to lose people. You will, but it's the right people to lose.
Exactly.
Because the people who don't resonate with you shouldn't be your client, shouldn't be your employee, shouldn't be on your board. Mm-hmm. You need the people who instinctively know that what you're saying is right. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with, first of all, being divisive. You need to know internally at your core what your driving motivators are, what your internal values are, what the core values that drive you and motivate you. And then that's how you can express, and that's how you can tie in your story by saying, this is who I am, this is what I believe. And it's okay to be divisive. It's okay to have a stand, make a statement, and say what you're going to do. Because that's how you're going to find the people who align with your messaging, and that's how you find the people who do not align with your messaging. And that's half the battle, is excluding the people that you don't want to work with or will be ineffectual working with, or who aren't going to buy into it anyway, so they won't actually be served. They're always going to find reasons why what your thing is doesn't work.
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Well said.
Every great brand
100%.
is polarizing. It has it's either on or off, right? You're attracting some people, you are not attracting others. You're pushing, you're pushing others away, not necessarily consciously, but by osmosis. This is the way it should happen. It's the way it should happen. So your story, Tyler, you say that everything you have done thus far in all these different industries and areas has really had this in common: promoting and encouraging people to be heard and understood. Tell us more about why that's so important to you.
It's evolved over time. I mean, I grew up in a household of primarily women. I mean, for the first 6 years, I had my father around, but after that, it was just my mom and my sister. And then to make ends meet, my mom brought on various boarders, and to help raise us, she had nannies. At one point, there were 8 women in the household, and I was the only guy. And one of the things that I constantly heard throughout that upbringing was how they weren't heard, how they weren't heard at work, how they weren't heard amongst their friends, how they weren't heard in society, this silencing of the feminine voice. And it bugged me because I didn't fully understand how that could be, especially growing up in theater. I mean, I grew up with some great and incredible actors, male and female. And some of my greatest role models have been women. And in fact, most of my business partners have been women. And it was this silencing of messaging that really bothered me. And so initially when I started all of this, it was to help raise voice to that. But then it really amplified with the birth of my daughter. Because I look at her now, she's 6 years old. And I don't want her to grow up in a world where her opinion isn't valued, where her input isn't heard. Because she is one of the brightest, most gifted children. And I'm a parent, so I have to say it.
Yeah, of course.
But I get that reinforcement from, strangers and people who know her or meet her for the first time. I remember I had a meeting probably 3 or 4 years ago. I was putting on a program called the Entrepreneur Speakers Corner, where small businesses could, I bought a large ad chunk off of a local radio station and then pieced it out individually one by one, so that small businesses could afford to get on the air where they couldn't normally afford an ad campaign. And I'd give them 2 minutes, which is a massive amount of time on radio. and we do an interview, and it was called, again, the Entrepreneur Speakers Corner, and it was just this nice way to showcase these people and these small businesses and what they were doing in a very casual interview style. But I had a meeting one night, and my wife is a very accomplished project manager. She worked for one of the largest home builders in my state or province, and definitely the largest in the city. And she had to work late, and I had this meeting, and so I had to bring my daughter along with me. And we were running through and doing the numbers. She was like 3 at the time. And at the end of the meeting, both of the clients that were present commented on just how amazing it was that she could not only sit there and keep herself entertained, but understood that this was a business meeting and was very polite and proper. And even at the end was asking like really poignant questions. Like at 3 years old, she was like, well, who would listen to this, Daddy? Well, these people. Well, why would they want to listen? That's a very good question. And then the clients had to discuss it out. So she is brilliant. And I want her to always have that ability to be heard and not be afraid to speak up in a boardroom when Daddy's doing work, to have valuable input into it. And, you know, I've been asked a few times on various podcasts, you know, what I want to be known for. And I want to be known as the father of the famous Mackenzie Foley, who went on to do whatever it is that she does. I want to be a footnote to her success. You know,
That's
that my wife and I raised her. And I think that if I can pass that on, that'll be perfect. So that has now been the driving force behind everything that I'm doing, to make sure that everyone's message is heard, but in particular, my daughters. If I can impart this on her, if I can teach her how to use these skills, surely I can teach everyone else how to. And I think that it's particularly in this day and age, it's so poignant and so important that we be able to do that.
I would agree. I would agree with that. So that probably would be a good segue into tell us what led you to write the book, The Power to Speak Naked, right? Because I'm assuming that you're going to give us some meat on this book about giving a voice, like, right, really giving some kind of honesty.
Being bold about it, in other words.
Being bold about this.
Well, Michael, to the first point of the question, because you packed in 3 or 4 there, which is never fair, because then I always lose the last 3 points. So we'll have to circle around.
We'll remind you.
Yeah. But what prompted the book really was wanting something tangible that I could hand people, that I could say, well, here you go, because I was answering the same questions over and over and over and over again. The book actually came about from my training sessions, and was kind of that cementing of the thought process and making sure that everything that I was instructing was cohesive and tied together. And what we ended up doing was, I mean, I've been in the arts all my life, and I have thousands of hours of footage of me because I record everything. You know, it's a habit that I've had for a long while. So we had, you know, hours and hours and hours of footage of me delivering various training sessions. And all we did was transcribe that audio and then put it into a cohesive format to build the book, so that the most common asked questions, you know, how do I get over stage fright? How do I tell a compelling story? What is the power of story? Why do I even need to do that? What's the proper way to prepare to give a speech? All of those things, they're, you know, repeated ad nauseum anytime I do a training session. And so this just became the easy way of, you know, it's basically a long format FAQ. Here are the frequently asked questions. Here's what you need to know. This will get your initial curiosity going. Come back to me after the read with the deeper questions. And we'll dive into those, because that's when I can serve people best, is when the cursory stuff is out of the way, because everybody wants to know that. And on top of it, I'm not the only person that teaches how to get over these things. I'm not the only one to answer these questions. I bet you if you Googled, which by the way, Google doesn't like when you say that. So if you performed an internet search on the platform of your choice, on, you know, public speaker trainers, I bet you 10,000 returns come up at minimum. The advantage to the book is that people are actually because it's transcribed from my videos, people are literally getting my voice. And they're getting my ideas, my concepts on how, after 35 years in the public eye and public speaking from stage, my thoughts on how to do this, what worked for me. And then that's how I can, again, start to find those people who resonate with my message and the people who don't. One of the greatest gifts that I got when the initially the book was self-published in 2019, and I was using it as a giveaway in my seminars. And it was attended, one of them, by my publisher, who picked it up and said, "This is a fantastic book. Would you be interested in, you know, traditional publishing?" And I said, "Well, I'd be a fool to say no." And so when he picked up the book, it got released in bookstores as opposed to being self-published and just available on Jeff Bezos' site. It was now available in bookstores everywhere starting September 7th. And with it came a press release. And one of the greatest gifts I ever got with that press release is I started to get hate mail.
We love hate mail.
We love haters.
That's how I know I made it.
I know. I love it.
You know, I've been waiting to be polarizing. And I think the problem with being good looking and charming is people just kind of nod along and agree with me. So it was so great to finally get somebody who went, "No, Mr. Foley, I do not agree with you." Right. And it made my day. I was just beaming. I got the email and instantly emailed it out to my team and said, "Look, hate mail. We made it." Big bold letters.
I love it, because we teach that all the time.
We teach it, and we share our hate mail with our inner circle on our weekly webinars.
Oh yeah,
it's like, hey, you know, we don't have enough of it yet,
you know?
but we.
Yeah, I'm actively anticipating more. And the nice thing is, you know, although this gentleman, when he emailed, didn't have all the facts, his points were not incorrect. And that was the other great blessing there, because one of my team members, oh, bless his heart, Michael, he does all of my social media stuff, wanted to just blast back. I'm like, no, we don't need to respond to this. We may take a moment to respond to this, but look at all the content that we've gotten from this, like just unpacking some of the stuff that this gentleman has put out. And on top of that, he was not entirely incorrect. So I didn't have anything to do with the press release. My publisher put it together. And they had an A/B test for the title on the various sites that they put this release out. And the one said, you know, controversial book banned by Amazon, now available in bookstores. And the guy was incensed because in the links, it says, if you want to buy the book, click here. And one of the links is to Amazon, where you can buy the book. And he's like, how it's not banned on Amazon. And what my publisher had done was, in typical PR fashion, skewed the truth.
Yeah.
The book is not banned on Amazon. You can get it, but it has been banned by Amazon in that we're not allowed to advertise it because the cover does not, it apparently violates their advertising clauses, in that it brings, what's the word? How did they word it? Avert sexual, or it over sexualizes parts of the body, including breasts and or buttocks, in a sexualized or demeaning manner. So for anybody
that's because the book has naked on it,
doesn't get to see the video, now you have to go and look at what the cover looks like. I dare you, go and search The Power to Speak Naked right now and see what we're all giggling about.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
That's right.
Well, you know, we can relate, like Tanya wrote, because marketing is so important to people. right? And they miss the fact that branding is the first thing you need to do, because if you don't, then you don't know what you're marketing, right? And she writes this article, and we put it in a funnel on another platform that we won't mention, and it gets banned immediately because it says,
because it's just like yours.
Don't leave home without your clothes
right.
on. And then it shows two people, and it's got certain
They're
banners
naked
that they're covering up things, right? And so we understand what you're talking about, and we're like, immediately are like, no, you can't put this on there, and even though it didn't show anything. But you know, those are really good points, though, because it you know, you got to be able to speak naked, don't you? Like, you have to be able, if you're going to show the world and bare your soul, show the world who you are, how you serve somebody, what qualifies you to serve them. You got to be able to speak with that kind of honesty, right?
Well, and that's, I mean, it's the title of the book has many layers to it, and that is the deepest one, is that I need people to be able to, if you want to be effective in public speaking, if you just want to be effective in communication, period, like, this book is not necessarily designed for people who want to be the next Tony Robbins. This is for the people who are ducking out of boardroom meetings because they're afraid that their boss is going to call on them to give next quarter sales presentations. You know, that you need to be able to expose yourself to the raw, naked truth and speak what's on your mind, and draw a connection in those meetings to why the material that you're presenting is important to you and why it should be important to everybody else, or ask them why it's important to them. That's the other part of it, is having those raw communications. And then the other part of the title is we're having a conversation right now, and the most that it's supported by on my end is this gray blank void. And I've used it specifically because I would be a charlatan if my book titled The Power to Speak Naked, which one of the points within it is that you need to strip away all gimmicks, right? I don't need a PowerPoint. I don't need props. I don't need a PA system, lights, all the rest of that. I should be able to be compelling in my message just with this gray blank space. There's nothing else supporting that message. And in fact, if we're just listening to this on the podcast, for the people who are just listening to Be Bold Branding, all they have is the audio. And I should be, along with you and Michael, should be able to be compelling, right, Tanya? Like, we don't need all of the fluff or the extraneous. So the book, I want you to be able to expose yourself to the raw, naked truth. I need you to be able to give a naked presentation, just get up and talk. And then, tongue in cheek, the book is poking fun at the worst advice that any public speaker can get, and that is to picture your audience naked.
Right.
Oh my, is that horrible?
No,
I would
never
rather
was.
have
No, it doesn't.
naked.
It just makes me more nervous.
I really want to illuminate that point right quick, because you know, I've been a professional auctioneer since 1992. Okay. And I'm coming up on my 30th year as professional auctioneer. I've been an auctioneer in front of 10,000 people before. I was an auctioneer on the largest residential real estate that's ever been sold in one day, $122 million worth of residential real estate in one day at the LA Convention Center. We had literally 15,000 people show up to this thing, but we could only hold 10. So we had to rent out a whole nother section above that, buy lunch for everybody, and then shuffle people in and out, because the fire marshal was like, we're going to shut this whole thing down. And then of course, much smaller crowds, including 2 people, or, you know, but the average is probably 500 to 1,000 people when I do an event. Well, I never looked at my crowd as naked. I looked in the eyes of people across the crowd, and you can always find that person that's connecting with you. They're understanding you. And you can always find your people inside of that crowd. You find that to be the same way, like when you can find that validation that you may need it inside you, because a lot of people do, and they need to know that I'm being heard, right? You can find that, and you need to find that in small crowds, large crowds, any crowd. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, if people were to purchase the book and go to chapter 4, I'm pretty sure, of my book, How to Engage and Re-engage Your Audience, it's one of the first things that I talk about is finding that friendly face that can be your anchor, because that's where you want to gauge yourself from. Make sure that you're serving at least one person, and then your talk will be successful. Because, and I think a lot of people feel that in a presentation or a talk, particularly if you're a public speaker, that that needs to be this life-altering, world-changing viewpoint that you bring forward. And the reality is, you don't have to give somebody a 180-degree change to change their life. If the Titanic were able to have changed its course by even a half a degree, it wouldn't have hit the iceberg. Right? We don't need to come full stop or reverse 180. Sometimes all we need to do is tick 2 degrees to starboard, and now all of a sudden you're on your way.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to find those friendly faces, and why, you know, this whole myth of picturing people naked is so counterproductive, because you're taking away from your audience in if you actually were able to do that exercise. Because first of all, you're taking away mental power on your own that needs to be focused on serving them. Then you're diminishing them by making them uncomfortable somehow, which is not serving your audience. Where in the reality is, if you focus on your audience, if you focus on that friendly face, now you have connection. And it's with connection that you build rapport. And if you have rapport, that's how you can change a stance or a viewpoint. And that's when you can affect change. So finding those friendly faces is so important, regardless of what the type of presentation is.
That's so true. And I remember, Tyler, you know, being on stage, and I know you can relate to this. I used to get frustrated at rehearsals, because rehearsals, you didn't have this big live audience, right? You just had a few people that were nitpicking everything that you did. But I would long for, it's like, just give me an audience in here, for goodness sake, because even with the bright lights in your face, and you can't actually see a lot of the faces out there except for the first few rows, there's a feeling that you get. There's this vibe, this connection that you get, that you know you're connecting with people out there. And I think that when your story, to relate that to like business and helping people, you know, prepare themselves to be to speak their story with confidence, it matters that you feel that connection. And it works in the business world too, not just on the stage. You feel when you're across from somebody, or on the phone, or on a Zoom call with somebody who gets you.
If you're connected.
Well, particularly in person. And there's actually a fascinating study that validates what anybody who's ever been on stage, you and me included, Tanya, know to be true. And that is that electrifying feeling that you can only get when a group of people are aligned together in a room.
It's adrenaline. I feel it right now just talking about it. It's strange. It's really strange.
But here's the reason why. So anybody who wants to can look up heart math. And I was introduced to this by a phenomenal speaker, Brandy Sador, who brought heart math onto my radar. And I've further heard it anytime I've been any one of Tony Robbins' events that I've been at. He's been bringing it up more and more lately. And so like it's starting to gain notoriety and influence. But Brandy was the one who brought it to my attention first. And it's a study of the electromagnetic resonance that is given off between the mind, the heart, and the stomach or the gut. Because there are neurons in all of them. The difference is the heart and the gut, they're straight subconscious, versus the mind, which has the conscious and the subconscious. And what they found is that if the heart and the mind are in conflict, that the EKG waves and like the measuring that electromagnetic pulses and resonance, they are skewed. They're not, they have discord within them. But when the heart and the mind are aligned, those electromagnetic pulses actually follow the same sinusoidal wave. And because they are resonating in harmony, anybody who knows anything about music knows that when you have a pitchfork over here and you hit it, a pitchfork that's to the same tuning over here will start to resonate and vibrate.
Right.
And what they've found is that this electromagnetic field that our bodies naturally give off anyways. We've always been giving off electrical impulses because that's how our body works. and when you have electricity flowing through any body, it will give off a magnetic field. When the heart and the mind are aligned, that magnetic field actually grows. And so when you feel that in a theater, right? Like think of that moment in a musical, in the finale, and everybody's out and they're singing, and you can feel the energy run through,
yeah.
and the hairs on the back of your spine tingle, and you're like, whoa, this is so magical. Scientifically, that's because music is one of the fastest ways to get the heart and the mind to align, because it forces you into almost a meditative state. In a musical, you're also taken on an emotional journey, so you have emotional connection to the melody and the music that is being played. Your heart and your mind are completely and totally aligned, along with an audience of 500 to 1,000, 2,000 people. And if we all have an electromagnetic radiance that is growing, that pulse is actually amplified, because you want to take two magnets together and you start stacking magnets.
Everything's in a cord.
Magnetic resonance. So there's actual scientific study into the feeling that, as a performer, Tanya, you and I both know to be true. And Michael, I'm sure you feel it when somebody gets a winning bid and they're like, ugh! And half the audience, everybody else goes, oh, it's too rich for my blood. There's a there's a feeling that waves through.
There sure is. We're big fans of close quarter live music. So we like small venue live music and stuff. And I've done it a million times. And so have you. And like, if somebody does a really good guitar solo or drum solo or anything, piano solo or a singing, or they hit that high note, I mean, if you let that whistle go back in the back of that room like that, watch how much they perform next time. They feel it too, and they feed off of that energy. And then they give you that much more of a performance, because they know that you are connecting with them and you're feeling it in your chair and sending it right back to them. And it's just amazing how that works. And I would say that your book sort of talks about that too, about how that ties in together in business and how important it is, whether that's one-on-one across the table, or whether that's across a Zoom, that we have that technology now, or whether that's a huge crowd of people that you're speaking.
It's the mic drop moments. But it's actually why one of our training programs is called Drop the Mic, because it's that moment where you when you're presenting, if you're particularly as a business owner, if you're giving a pitch or a presentation, when everything clicks and you have the whole audience go, oh yeah. And at that point, you just drop the mic.
Yep.
Right. And the way to get them to do that again is to get them in tune to how they're feeling, and then get them to feel how you want them to feel. And power story. We go over it in the book in depth, why it's important to use story, why it's important to engage your audience and have them involved too. One of the statistics that I've read, and I wish I could cite the source, I've been trying to track it down because I'd like to know. I'm one of those people, again, with an engineering background, I don't like citing things without being able to cite a source for it, so it bugs me. But I have read this following statistic, and again, it's one of those things where you just know it innately to be true, but I'd like to know what the science behind it is. If you are having just a monologue, so I'm just speaking to you and you don't have any input back, your audience's engagement is going to be approximately 76%. But if you include them into a dialogue where they are participating in the discussion, the engagement goes up to 92%. And so, I've got 2 chapters in the book that are entirely dedicated to ways to get your audience involved, up and moving, and providing information. One of the great things about it is it takes the load off of you as a speaker. Now, all of a sudden, you're not having to fill an hour. You're only having to fill 40, 45 minutes.
And they truly want to help you. They want to participate and engage with you.
Yes.
Not only do they want to, but how can you truly serve an audience if you don't know what their needs are? And no 2 audiences are the same.
Right.
I've been performing for 35 years. And, the longest run that I was in was Ragtime. And I think I was on that. I want to say it was a 13-month run. And no audience was ever the same, what their expectation, and no performance was the same too, because when you first start out, especially on a run that long, You first start presenting and the material is fresh and new, but then it gets stale. And you have to find new meaning within that material so that each day you're presenting, you're bringing something to this audience. And it's a give and take and back and forth. But when you are presenting your own material, this is your own words. For 20 years, I was locked into other people's words, other people's scripts. And I had to find my truth within someone else's words. Now I have the freedom to use my own words at my own pace, in my own time, of my own choosing. The freedom that comes with that is that I don't have to be locked into a script, and I can take people on whatever journey I choose. The responsibility that comes with that freedom is that I need to make sure that that journey serves the audience. Because if I'm not serving the audience, it's just an ego play for me, and it does no one any good.
Right.
So getting the feedback, watching to see who's nodding along with agreement, allowing you the opportunity to provide input and amplify my point, or allow me to check your understanding of what I'm saying, so that if it's not correct, I can course correct, so that we're all on the same page. All of these things are important, and why we should be having dialogues with our audience instead of a monologue.
So true.
Yeah,
And
I
knowing
love
knowing what the audience is seeking when they come there, right? That's a large part of it too. I wish we could go on for days, because
we could.
this has been so interesting. So we'll just have you back sometime if you'd be kind enough to come back.
It sounds excellent. I will, anytime you ask, I will show up for you guys. It would be my joy and my pleasure. Be bold branding. If I can't be bold with mine, I can't help you with yours. And
That's
Lord
why
knows,
we
if
couldn't
I'm going to
wait
get
to
naked
have
on the
you.
cover of
I
my
love
book, I should be able to come and help you guys, help your audience do a little bit better.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
How can prospects reach you? Any of our audience? What's the best way?
Track me down is on my website, SeanTylerFoley.com. Sean is spelled the proper Irish way, SeanTylerFoley, just like Connery. SeanTylerFoley.com. We have everything there. If you want to find out what my speaking schedule looks like, if you want to book me privately for coaching, if you want to have me come in and speak to your organization, if you want to get copies of the book, if you want any of our freebies too, if you want to get a copy of the method, which is an 11-page document, 5 insider secrets from 35 years of public speaking, they can get that there. Anybody who has a copy of the book, if they scan the resources, they can get the audience analysis tool. So to your point, Tanya, if they want to find out what their audience needs, we have a great tool that you can use to pre-survey your audience to find out how you can best serve them. So all of those resources are available at some way, somehow on the website. So Sean Tyler Foley is the best way to go. And if any of your listeners could do me a favor, if you're listening right now and you like what Tanya and Michael are doing, and you're a regular listener of Be Bold Branding, and you're finding value in this, if you could do me a favor before you go to my website, you're already on this platform right now. So just hit pause and give this a 5-star review, because if you're getting value out of this, or if you want me to take them up on their offer to have me back, the only way that we know that we've served you today is if you type in the comments, yes, please bring Tyler back. So if you want me back, let them know in the comments. If you like what they're bringing to you each week as a listener, then please make sure to give it a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening to, and then hop over to my website and check me out.
Yes, I love it.
You're awesome. You're awesome.
That is awesome.
And we love the support.
Yes,
Tyler.
absolutely.
It's been such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. So if you guys have more questions about your brand, as build that story, put it out there in a way that you want people to see you. Otherwise, they assign a brand to you if you don't create one yourself, if you don't craft one, right? So go to discussyourbrand.com and you can jump on with our team and talk about how you craft your story appropriately. So, all right, that's it, guys.
And hey, folks, you know why we do this? We do it for prosperity. And when we say prosperity, we're not just talking about money. That's just a part of it. We're talking about a full 360 of an abundant life. We sincerely wish for all of y'all. We know here at BrandFace that prosperity favors the bold. So we say be bold, especially with your brand. So thank you so much. And thank you, Sean. And thank you, Ms. Tanya.
Thank you, guys. All right, we'll see you next time on Be Bold Branding.